Sometime in the middle of 2017, a brand new design company that would eventually be known as 52Toys released their first major step forward for the relatively new Beastbox series, which up to this point consisted of a single little dinosaur and a slight remold variant. BB-03 Jojo is the original 5cm Beastbox. As such, it's singularly responsible for launching what is by far the most popular figure size in this line. But as of early 2025, that's about to change in a major way. Jojo's packaging alone is a goldmine of 52Toys history. In fact, at this time, they were calling themselves Top Pop. And also, Beijing Talent Joy Cultural Development Company Limited. Rolls right off the tongue. But at this stage in the game, they also had a 52Toys web domain. Yet the copyright is registered to Top Pop. I'm definitely curious about the meandering path they took to finally arrive at 52Toys as their official brand name. Interestingly, even at this time with a single 5cm figure release, the packaging shows character faction symbols. So they definitely had big plans for this line, and graphically, the symbols that you're seeing here on this box aren't the same as their final form. I'm pretty sure the dinosaur symbol is the only one here that hasn't been modified at some point. Anyway, this is a really interesting trip down memory lane, but let's open the box and release the beast. I've only been collecting these things for a few years, so it's fascinating to get a window into the earlier releases of this line and see how things have evolved with their packaging. Their early character instructions just use photos of prototypes instead of line art. Here's an original character card. I've never seen one quite in this style, no catalog because there's nothing else for them to advertise yet. This one did come with a box charger insert, and another interesting thing is they show instructions on here how to stack the boxes, which I don't recall seeing anywhere else. Just for old time's sake, I do want to look at this character card. This one has a very glossy coat, and interestingly, it also shows all of the faction symbols. In later releases, they only show the one faction symbol that the figure belongs to. It also shows a totally different style of attributes in bar format. Arms are the strongest weapons in defense of Jojo. No one can afford a punch from him. The best way to facing him is running away, since the feet are the weakness of Jojo, and I would agree with that because he's got tiny little tootsies. We also have what became the standard for character attributes until they decided to stop including that on character cards. Let's get this monkey boy out of the package. Here's an original style box charger. This is fascinating. It's kind of a frosted plastic. The basic design of the box charger hasn't really changed for this line. The indentations on the front are shallower than on later versions. And I've never seen this before on the backside. I feel like this is a collector's item. Bear in mind, this goes back almost a decade of 52Toys transforming machine cubes. Obviously, the main intent of this video is to show off JoJo's successor, Neo Gio, but I did want to preface that a bit with a little bit of history, so you might say a couple of things for this review are evolution and heritage. By today's standards, JoJo is super easy to transform, and I'm not even going to bother showing a step-by-step demo. 8 years ago, if you wanted a Beastbox, this is what you got. I think it's still fascinating that you can extrude that shape out of a cube. But today, that's all changing in a huge way, and I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like.
Whoa.
This is the all-new BB-70 Neo Gio. Folks, we've got a lot to talk about today, so let's get started. I am very excited to introduce 52Toys' brand new release, BB-70 Neo Gio. Before we get too far into it, I want to point out that this is a VIP version of this figure, which is the special release indicated by this sticker. This is the version of Neo Gio sold exclusively to VIP members, with the main difference from the standard release being its translucent purple body panels with a flake paint effect. The VIP release also came with a couple of bonus items. This quarter-size cartridge-style accessory, it's an axe that turns into an axe. It also has a collector's pin, which I think glows in the dark. And indeed it does. This is really cool. Let's take a closer look at the package, but before we do, I want to mention that this will be a pretty full review. We're going to look at package contents. I'm going to give you an in-depth look at this figure. I'll show you how this accessory works. I'll do a step-by-step transformation demo, and then I'll wrap up this review with a box grade. As far as the package, as with figures, their design changes and evolves over time. It's a very different look from many of the earlier Beastbox packages. It has a newer style logo, an illustrative reference of Neo Gio, and all around really nice details about this figure. Designed by X2R, who was involved in the very first JoJo that we saw earlier. Previously produced by Beijing Joy something rather. Something new that they're apparently doing is rating a figure's transformation difficulty. This one is a 5, so it's surely going to be a bit challenging to transform. And as expected with new releases over the past year, we got some collector cards. You're probably going to want to hang on to these instructions. We also have the usual catalog stuff and a character card, which no longer has a bio. I suppose these new figures are so evolved they defy description. I don't know. And let's see if you can spot the mistake on this card. I want to take a quick look at these cards. We got a Toxic Horn, a Rhapsody, another Rusty piece. Here's the MoMA. And do you believe this shit? I got 2 MoMAs in the same package. How does that even happen?
They ripped me off. Somebody call the police.
Let's take a look at this Neo Gio gorilla. This is an absolutely fascinating figure design. They worked on a lot of awesome mech styling with some interesting little bits. These handles, these mechanical back extensions, and beautiful styling all the way around. I love this flake paint effect. It looks awesome. I'm seeing a lot of callbacks to the original JoJo with these orange graphic markers, especially around the forearms, some green highlights, and of course it has the correct land animal faction symbol. 99. The head sculpt looks great. My original reaction to this figure was, I wished it were a little bit more robotic looking. It really does look great, but a little bit of concern is that they're getting so good at figure sculpting that they're starting to get a little too realistic. And I'd prefer to see them hew a little more towards a robotic animal look. It has an opening and closing jaw. It opens pretty wide. This can absolutely be a rage monkey if you want it to be. Nice styling on the back, and obviously there's a lot going on with it mechanically. I think they worked in these components without it looking too obtrusive. I really do love the look of this thing. Neo Gio can absolutely get into a typical gorilla stance. As far as articulation, it has a really good range of head motion. Its shoulders rotate really well. You've got an elbow bend in the forearms, forward and backward rotation on the hips, and as with original JoJo, the feet can tilt down. Neo Gio can stand upright pretty effectively and get into some interesting poses. This figure also has articulated fingers with a rotating thumb. What's interesting is they copied what Hasbro typically does with their more advanced Transformer figures, where you get a knuckle joint on the index finger and the other 3 are sort of fused together. This is just my honorary sense of humor, but I was kind of hoping this figure could give you the middle finger. But there again, not really requirements for a mass market figure. So as I'm working my way around this thing, just be aware of this open-ended, it's almost a mushroom peg type joint. It can easily work itself loose as you twist it. It's easy to reattach, of course, albeit it's a slightly annoying design. I'd guess they opted to leave that open-ended given the amount of flexing those plastic parts have to do rubbing against each other to keep it from potentially breaking. So we're going to set this guy aside for a second and take a look at this bonus item. Let's see how it opens. First thing you want to do is rotate this piece out. Flip it around to the backside and this is going to fold straight out. This piece rotates all the way around. This piece rotates up and in. It looks like this piece should connect here. And you got yourself a weapon of death. I love 52Toys' sense of humor with this thing. Neo Gio is a gorilla who's going to rock the house and then tear it down. It looks like these pegs should insert into his hand. Oh man, that is great. It's gorilla rampage time. I probably need to fill around with that a bit more, but for whatever reason it looks like this piece is easier to attach to the left hand, and not so much the right one. Let's take a look at this guitar mode. I gotta tell you, these teeth are pretty sharp. Just running my finger along the edge is a little bit uncomfortable. Something else to keep in mind with this piece is it doesn't rotate outward. It actually needs to pivot inward. Just keep in mind the shape of this thing is similar to a Flying V-type guitar, and that informs how the parts are supposed to rotate. It is a great little piece. You could call this a bass guitar, but I'm gonna guess that Neo Gio is such a heavy metal dude. He only plays low strings, and he only needs 4 of them. This piece has awesome sculpting and detail. It has a slight flake paint effect, the spray painted effect along the edge of the axe, and nice coloring and graphic details all the way around. 52Toys went full tilt on this thing. Pretty cool that they added a 99 on here also. What's interesting is the design of this guitar is ambiguous enough so that you could have it left-handed or right-handed, whichever way you want to pose it. I'm going to make him a righty. It's a great effect, and you can make your Neo Gio a total guitar god. I really love this. One thing I'm finding is between the guitar and the fact that you need to have Neo Gio's forearms out to put him in a guitar playing pose, it really throws off the center of gravity. So I'm not finding a way to pose it without having him lean back. But even so, it's a great effect. Also, all things considered, they did a ton of variants of JoJo. That figure probably has more repaints than any other 5cm figure in the line. So I hope they do at least a few of these. If you're listening, 52Toys, I need a JoJobs 2.0. Give me that monkey upgrade. Also, I want to see a Johnny 2.0, a Flame JoJo 2.0, a Monkey King 2.0. Why not a JoJo 2.0 and a Tutu? A Final Edition 2.0. Probably a little too early for that one. I want to see all the Neo Jojos. Alright, let's tackle this transformation. Before we do, I want to point out a couple of things that I discovered while I've been playing around with this figure. I found that where the shoulders clip in can pop out a little too easily, so you'll probably find it easiest to keep the shoulder pad rotated down as far as it'll go and keep it out of the way. That way when you're moving the arm, twist it up and down with your fingers close to the joint to keep it from slipping out. Also, I have a manufacturing defect on this figure. They used the wrong shoulder clip part on one of these arms. The good news is, this doesn't prevent me from manipulating or transforming this figure or anything like that, but it is definitely a manufacturer error. Anyway, let's get Neo Gio transformed into its box mode. Like I mentioned before, this one is rated a 5-star transformation, meaning it's the highest level of difficulty. It might help conceptually to think of this transformation in terms of getting pieces out of the way so parts can be manipulated and rotated around more freely. So the initial steps are definitely going to be moving large pieces up and out of the way. Also, I definitely recommend hanging on to the instructions. On that note, we're going to start with rotating out the shoulder pad flaps like so. Then you're going to swing the arms out to the side to give them more clearance. The reason you do that is so you can more easily get at these ribcage pieces. What you're going to do here is rotate that piece out. If they're not already, you're going to make sure that these back flaps are rotated up and out of the way. We're going to remove the interlocking teeth from the back section. They're on multiple jointed arms and you'll pop it out. Coming back around to the front, we're going to remove the chest and loin. You'll pull the chest piece up and out of the way. We'll pull the crotch out for now. And this is all the preliminary transformation stuff. Having this figure all exploded out so parts can move more freely. The spine rotates around this curved part. You'll rotate that up and over. Then you're going to want to have the front section pointed straight out. On the back end, this piece needs to rotate up so that it can shift up against the back plate right here. So you're just going to want to make sure that you're sliding up into that position so it'll be flush up against the spine. This is what you should be seeing at this point. The arm piece will be at a 45-degree angle from the center spine. And at this point, you may find it helpful to rotate these ribcage flaps up a little further up and out of the way to give them more clearance. At this point, we're going to pop the arms out of their shoulder blades. Bring them down like so. You might also find it easier to rotate the legs back. I'll rotate the forearms so the fists are turned around. Once these are cleared, you want to slide the head forward. Then you'll raise the chest plate up and over its head, then close it over just like that. Between these parts, it'll form kind of a wedge shape. Then you'll rotate it 180 degrees. You might need to move some pieces around just a little bit to get it to rotate. With this piece turned around, you're going to rotate it up towards the back spine like so. It'll rest flush and you'll start to form a corner. You're going to rotate the torso around 180 degrees, and about this position is good for now. These are on sliders and we're going to pull them forward. Now we're going to push them in. Just make sure they're flush up against the torso. We're going to rotate the knees out 45 degrees. Then you're going to rotate the shin another 45 degrees inward. Between the two, you're starting to form a corner. You're going to want to make sure you're forming a tight corner with that piece. With a character like this, with this many moving parts, it's really all about just making sure everything's flush up against where the piece is supposed to go. Now we'll fold his little tootsies down and they'll collapse in on that space. Same on the other side. Here's where we're at so far. Now we'll rotate the chest and crotch piece down. It has a peg and post connection, just make sure you have it lined up and the crotch piece is going to fold around the contour like that at roughly a 90-degree angle. Now we're going to fold these ribcage parts up. The contour makes it pretty obvious where it needs to go. If they're not already, make sure the thumb is tucked inside the fingers on each so you've basically got a balled up fist with the thumbs on the inside. You're going to rotate the shoulder so that the shoulder pads are facing forward. The fist will be facing backwards, so we're going to rotate that around 180 degrees like so. This is what you should be looking at. You're going to want to make sure this little black piece is facing down, and the shoulder armor piece will be flush against the lower part of the shoulder. You're going to rotate the arms about 45 degrees from the elbow. Now we're going to rotate the shoulder armor pieces up and around. They're on these hinges, and you'll bring them up like so. This joint should be exposed and it's flush up against it like that. Again, there are a lot of joints really close up against each other in a small area, so you want to make sure you're only rotating that part. It'll probably help to get your fingertips on it to secure the other joints in place while you're rotating it. This is about what you should be seeing at this point. Then you're going to rotate the wrists so they're facing completely back, and then you're going to fold the arms in at the elbow. This might be the trickiest part of the transformation. The gist of it is, we need to get these shoulders to swing over and around so that the back side of the forearm can be touching. Basically, the pieces on each side are going to need to connect together. From there, you've got both arms in the approximate position they need to be in. Again, these interlocking teeth are going to need to mesh together, so you're going to rotate them down into place. And quick sidebar, I have to point out this crotch piece is kind of a pain in the ass because it keeps popping off. That's not a manufacturing defect, it's an engineering defect. It's not hard to push back into place though, it's just really annoying. The elbows will form a perfect 45-degree angle. It takes a bit of maneuvering to get them there, but they'll connect pretty solidly. Next up, the rounded part of these shoulder pads are going to come up and connect to their opposing tab. You know it's in the right position when the handlebar part is flush up against the side of the head. Same on the other side, it's going to rotate that piece up and over and connect. This is a good time to just inspect it all the way around and make sure everything is flush and squared up. Now the legs are going to need to rotate up into that position, and this tab is going to connect to the underside of the fist. This is a critical juncture of the transformation where you're going to want to make sure you have everything squared up. Moving towards the end game, we'll start with these interlocking teeth oriented in this position. You're going to rotate this back hinge and collapse it down to form a triangular shape. Then you're going to fold that assembly down so it squares up with the back end. This tab is going to connect to that port, fold it up, and plug it in. The nice thing about these railgun pieces is they hold pretty well by friction, so they don't really have to connect to anything. Final step, and this is kind of a moment of truth. These forearm panels are going to need to swing around and form opposing corners. So we're just going to unplug those, bring them up and around, and join them together with these interlocking teeth. This really forms the only square corner of this box mode. So at this point, yeah, it's just a matter of scrunching it up as needed just to make sure everything's compacted correctly. Neo Gio is one of those box modes that's a bit snug of a fit on certain sides, but it'll fit there pretty cleanly as long as you have it in a particular orientation. Now it's time to give this monkey boy a box grade. This is my rating system of 6 categories with up to 5 points each for a total score of anything between 0 to 30 points. Neo Gio is an astounding example of what 52Toys designers are capable of producing right now, and how the Beastbox designs have evolved over the past several years. It has tons of detail, awesome mech design cues, and paired with its really well thought out accessory, it truly is a rockstar showpiece. It's also perfectly in that sweet spot between a robotic animal as a character study and an action figure. 5 out of 5. Evolved primates have opposing thumbs. Neo Gio does, of course, and it has so much more going for it with its seriously advanced figure design, articulation, the aforementioned mech styling, and paired with its axe that doubles as an axe, it leaves nothing missing from this category. 5 out of 5. Neo Gio's packaging rates its transformation as a top-level difficulty, and I agree. It's definitely challenging, but doable. The Achilles heel with a figure design this advanced is you've got a lot of moving parts, which means the transformation tolerances need to be really precise, or you're going to be left with a jumbled mess. Some people may find it frustrating, and I'd honestly recommend keeping these instructions handy, which, by the way, are unfortunately not the easiest to follow on certain steps. 2 out of 5. Neo Gio's articulation leaves nothing to be desired. I think it's perfect in every way except for one thing. Its center of gravity isn't quite as balanced as the original JoJo's, so I'm giving this 4 out of 5. The figure is mostly well built except for a couple of parts that keep wanting to pop off, and the fact that you need to be careful with those shoulder joint connections when you're rotating its arms. 3 out of 5. Neo Gio is loads of fun to play with. This category really should be a 5-star rating, but the fun factor is hampered by a couple of parts that tend to want to fall off and its somewhat frustrating transformation. All things considered, what a great figure. 4 out of 5. And that brings the box grade total to 23 out of 30. So there's a look at Neo Gio and everything you need to know about this Evolved Ape. This really is a great time to be a Beastbox collector, and what an awesome figure to come full circle with for this toy line. And in spite of its obvious flaws, it's such a great